Have you ever felt a sadness that felt older than you are? A fear that doesn't belong to your story? Maybe you've stood in your own life and wondered why certain rooms feel haunted. Why do you flinch at raised voices when no one ever struck you? Why does abandonment feel like a certainty even when everyone stays? Why does your body prepare for disaster even on the quietest mornings? You are not a broken machine. You are a garden, and you are tilling soil that was prepared 100 years ago. I want to tell you about the garden you inherited, the one you didn't plant, but the one you've been tending all the same. Because somewhere in your bloodline, someone survived something terrible, and their survival became your instruction manual. Welcome to the Garden of Ancestral Echoes. Your great-great-grandmother. Let's say she lived through famine. Not the kind you read about in textbooks, the kind where you watch your children's ribs show through their skin like the branches of winter trees. The kind where hunger becomes a language you speak fluently. She survived. She learned to hoard, to hide bread in her apron even when the table was full, to never, ever trust that tomorrow's meal was certain. Her body learned to prepare for scarcity, even in abundance. Science has a name for this. It's called epigenetics, the quiet language your environment uses to whisper instructions into your cells. Not words, not memories, just tiny switches, turning fear on or letting it rest. Your great-great-grandmother's famine didn't just shape her habits. It whispered to her cells, "Remember this. Prepare the children." And those whispers got passed down like heirlooms, like old lace and iron keys and the smell of rain before a storm. These are the seeds of the past. Trauma encoded, survival remembered. And here's the unsettling part. What if the fear you fight every day isn't even yours? The ghosts in our DNA aren't supernatural. They're biological memories, instructions written in a language older than words. So here you are, standing in a garden you didn't plant, pulling weeds with names you don't recognize. You have enough food in your pantry, but you still panic buy when things go on sale. You have people who love you, but you can't quite believe they'll stay. You are safe, but your body doesn't feel safe. This is the echo. Your nervous system is still braced for your great-great-grandmother's famine. Your fight or flight response is still fleeing your grandfather's war. Your need to control everything? That's your great-aunt's survival strategy when she had no control at all. We don't just inherit eye color and the shape of our noses. We inherit survival strategies. We inherit the ways our ancestors learned to stay alive. And here's the cruel grace of it. What saved them might be destroying you. The hypervigilance that kept your grandmother alive in an abusive home now makes it impossible for you to rest. The emotional shutdown that helped your father survive his father's rage now makes it impossible for you to connect. The armor they wore to survive has become the cage you live in. This is not your fault. You didn't choose this inheritance. You opened a will you didn't know existed and found you'd inherited a house full of ghosts. So why can't you just let it go? Why can't you just decide to be different? Because you're not just pulling up your own roots, you're pulling up a forest. Because the soil is so damn heavy. Change requires more than willpower. It requires you to dig down through layers of inherited instructions that were designed to keep you alive. Every time you try to do something different, your body screams, "Danger," This is not how we survive. Your nervous system doesn't care that you're safe now. It remembers when you weren't, or rather, when they weren't. The ghosts in your DNA don't have calendars. They don't know the war is over. When you look in the mirror, you don't just see yourself. You see a choir of faces behind your own. Some whisper, some weep, some still stand guard. And the weight of that chorus can be unbearable. Because to change, you have to gently, kindly tell your ancestors, "Thank you for what you did to survive, but I am choosing something different." That feels like betrayal, but it is actually love. Here's the truth they don't tell you. You don't have to burn the garden down to plant something new. You don't have to reject your ancestors to break the cycle. You can honor what they survived while refusing to pass on the wounds. This is the work. Not erasing the past, but composting it. Taking the bitter roots and the damp earth and the iron taste of old fear and transforming it into something that can nourish what comes next. Science tells us that epigenetic changes can be reversed, that the instructions written by trauma can be rewritten by healing, that your cells are listening to your choices, not just your history. Every time you choose differently, you are editing the story that gets passed down. When you set a boundary instead of disappearing, you're writing a new instruction. When you ask for help instead of suffering alone, you're writing a new instruction. When you allow yourself to rest instead of bracing for disaster, you're teaching your cells a different language. Listen to me. You are the dream of your ancestors. They survived so you could thrive. But you don't have to carry their weapons anymore. You can put the sword down and pick up the seeds. They didn't know they were handing you trauma. They thought they were handing you survival. And they were. You are alive because of what they endured. But surviving is not the same as living. And you have permission to do more than survive. So here we are, at the end of this walk through your ancestral garden. You are still standing in soil that was prepared long before you were born. But now you know what you're standing in. You know why certain flowers grow so easily and why others refuse to take root. The work is not to forget them. The work is to remember them so well that you can choose differently. To say, "I see you. I honor what you survived. And because you survived, I get to heal." Visit their graves if you can, or visit them in your heart. Tell them thank you. Tell them you're sorry they had to suffer. And tell them you're going to break the cycle by learning to rest. The ghosts in your DNA aren't there to haunt you. They're there to remind you. You come from people who survived the unsurvivable. And now it's your turn, not to survive, but to bloom. This is your garden now. What will you plant? Thank you for walking with me today, for sitting in the damp earth and the smell of rain and the hard truth that we are more than ourselves. If this story touched something in you, I'd love to know. What is one seed you are choosing to stop planting today? Leave it in the comments below. Not for me, for you, for the act of naming it, for the first step of choosing differently. The garden is patient. It will wait while you decide. Take care of yourself. Honor your ghosts. And remember, you might be the first person in your entire bloodline who gets to choose healing instead of just survival. That is not a small thing. That is everything. You are not broken. You are growing.